We now live in a world where white lives don't matter, even to the white left-wing morons who are happy to commit racial and cultural suicide. Watch the cretins of the left happily commit racial suicide, demonstrating because a black man was killed in a foreign country over which we have no control, and ignoring the death of a 7-year-old white girl killed in the UK, and saying nothing about the tens of thousands of white girls who have been raped in the UK, a country where once upon a time we had an orderly and free country, until the left ensured that our police and government have had their power removed by political correctness. So now we live in a country where our own citizens are worthless, where one of our soldiers can be brutally murdered outside his own barracks with little attention from the press or the public. But a foreigner in a far-off land is worth risking your own life and the life of your friends and family for by demonstrating in close proximity with thousands of other useful idiots during a pandemic. And watch how the virtue-signalling far-left teaching profession assists in the indoctrination of our children, leading them blindly into the arms of a foreign supremacist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, intolerant culture that is hell-bent on world domination. I've just been watching a video. A man stood in the Tottenham Road, London, at the end of Nimrod Passage, holding a sign that said, "The right to openly discuss ideas must be defended." I have to say, I'd like to shake him by his hand. He was surrounded by a horde of left-wing cretins, calling him a Nazi scum and saying that he was not welcome there. They pushed him and they jostled him. They tried to pull his sign out of his hands. Many of them had felt the need to make signs of their own, saying things along the lines of "go away Nazi scum," but not necessarily using that language. And they chanted "Nazi scum off our streets." Ironic, really. I'd like to know what they're objecting to. The sign is quite an innocuous, self-evident and logical statement to make in a free country, where freedom of speech is essential to maintain that freedom. Anyone who disagrees that ideas should be discussed openly is a fascist coward who fears what others have to say. Worse still, if one side of the argument is silenced, who will stop the tyrants? Gary McFarlane, leader of Black Lives Matter in the UK, also turned up to add his two pennyworth, pushing and shoving the man who remained calm throughout. McFarlane, when interviewed by Mike Graham on talk radio in his capacity as leader of Black Lives Matter in the UK, said that before we get rid of the police, they should ban the rollout of tasers and ban stop and search, amongst other things. Gary also said that I haven't spotted any violent protests. I must have missed that one, unless you're talking about when the police cavalry charged peaceful protesters. He added that institutional racism should be looked at in all areas of employment and education, including integrating the teaching of African history into the curriculum. When Mike from Talk Radio asked him if he was proud to be British, Gary said, "No, I am an internationalist." Teaching African history? Well, okay. We should teach British history first and foremost. Every country teaches their own history first and foremost. Global history is important and should be taught at high levels. I agree that when British history is being taught, it should include such things, such bad things, as the fact that the English transported the Irish criminals and insurgents to the New World as indentured servants back in the 17th and 18th centuries. And after a set period, they were set free and able to buy land and settle. The rights and wrongs and the difference between that and African slave trade should be discussed openly, which is essentially what the man in the video was saying in principle. All ideas should be discussed. British history also includes the fact that the British have been enslaved by the Barbary pirates and by the Ottoman Empire as recently as the early 20th century. We were enslaved by the Vikings and the Norsemen and by the Romans. If we have risen to the top after all that hardship, It is because we didn't sit in a corner and cry about being victims. It's because we got off our asses and moved forward. But if you are going to teach African history, will this include the fact that there was a massive amount of slavery going on in Africa long before the transatlantic slave trade and long after the British banned it in our empire? Such slavery was by blacks and on whites. Will they teach how every single black person transported across the Atlantic from Africa was, in the first instance, captured and sold by black people, and those black people refused to allow whites to go inland because they wanted to keep the harvest of slaves to themselves? Will it include the Barbary pirates of North Africa who sailed as far as Iceland to gather white slaves and who decimated the population of Cornwall by taking white slaves from there? It was interesting and heartening to see how many black people commented on Talk Radio YouTube interview, saying that Black Lives Matter in general, and the moronic McFarlane in particular, do not speak for them. Black Lives Matter has put race relations back 40 years at least. I would remind you all that the UK is not America. We are different cultures. One bad cop in the USA does not mean that all our police officers in Britain are racist bastards. Black Lives Matter, reiterated by McFarlane in the Talk Radio interview, want to get rid of the police and, in McFarlane's words, police ourselves. Imagine, if you can, a world without police, but policed by thugs like McFarlane, where they gather gangs of 100 people to push and intimidate a single lone man calmly holding a sign which effectively says, "Let's talk about it." Hitler did the same thing. He got rid of the police and let his brown shirts keep the peace, which meant anyone they disagreed with got a pasting. Jews were never safe. Learn about Kristallnacht. Talking about global history, there are people alive today who were there. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organisation that wants to destroy the structure of British society, sadly with the help of the young white left-wing idiots who have swallowed the lies because they have a school education based on left-wing indoctrination by academics who don't understand how an orderly and free society functions. The true Brit must fight back. We shed the shackles of slavery in the past, and we must never be enslaved again. See ya.